Welcome to Casual Friday. Just like with Technique Tuesday, if you want to jump from topic to topic, there are direct links down in the description. So I have a couple of finished projects. I have a project in progress and another that I'm about to start. And it's this new project I'm about to start that is going to lead into my third topic, which is regarding shoulder and neck shaping and the different types of neck ribbing and collars that you might want to use. So last week I showed you the little blanket buddy that I was knitting for my grandnephew to be. I finished his little face. He's got a winky face. So one eye is bigger than the other because the other one's more horizontal. And he's got his little arms tied. And he is the companion to the little blanket that I knit. So I had the leftover skein of yarn, and that is to go with the blanket. The other thing I finally finished my daughter's sweater that I started in September and took a break from in order to knit a sweater for myself. So I have finished her sweater. It's kind of a dark color, but it's the identical sweater to the one I made for my younger daughter earlier this summer. So I finished it when we were down in Santa Fe for Thanksgiving, and my youngest daughter was with us, and so I had her try the sweater on, and she said, oh, the sleeves are about an inch too short. So I took the cast on edges out and I added another inch to them. And as I was weaving in the ends, I realized I had not worked the sleeve decreases the same for both sleeves. Now, there's nothing wrong with either one. Both of them were done in a completely acceptable way. It's just that I decided to make a change in the second sweater in terms of which row I was going to do my decreases on. It's a 2-round pattern for the sleeve. It's a garter rib pattern. So this garter rib here is 2 knits followed by 2 garter stitches. So one round everything is knit, and then on the following round it's knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. And on the first sweater I remembered doing the decreases on the first sleeve I did the decreases in a purl column. And I thought, oh, I could do the decreases a row earlier when they were all in knit stitches, and then the purl column on the following row would hide those. And so I didn't really look at the previous sleeve when I was doing this, and I did notice something about the decreases that I've seen but many times before in other sleeves that I've knit. I just hadn't remembered it from the first sleeve, and I had the first sleeve attached to the sweater that was in my lap, and I never once looked at it to see why I was getting a slightly different result. For some reason it just didn't sink in with me. I think it was because it was the day after Thanksgiving when I was knitting the second sleeve. So by the end of Thanksgiving, I'm pretty exhausted because I've done most of the cooking. I got a lot of help this year, so I wasn't as exhausted. But traditionally, on the day after Thanksgiving, I do not get dressed. I stay in my pajamas all day long, and all I do is knit and watch movies and do whatever. I don't go out of the house. I eat leftovers, and I'm as happy as can be. So that was what I was doing. So I was probably not at 100% mental capacity then. But so it wasn't until I was weaving in the ends that I realized that I'd done the sleeves differently. And if it was something I was knitting for myself, it's possible that I would have corrected this in some way by laddering down seam stitches. I've done that before when I realized, oh, I didn't do whatever I was supposed to do along the sleeve seam. In order to do that, I may have put it in a timeout for a week or two before I would be ready to address it. But I was not going to do that. This is the second time I've knit this sweater, different yarn, different kid I'm knitting it for. And I was pretty much and it's not for me. And I need to send it to the Netherlands very soon so that my daughter can get it before her birthday later in December. So I'm going to show you overhead what the two different sleeves look like. And the reason and another reason I'm not particularly concerned about it is that the only way you'd ever see the sleeve seams is if you had your arms out, and even then, if you turn like this, it's hard. You can't really see the sleeve seam. It's kind of right here. And nobody's going to see them side by side. And like I said, neither one was done incorrectly. They just weren't done identically. So I'll put a little overhead thing and you can see what they look like. So this is the first sleeve I did. And what I had, so we've got knit 2, garter 2, knit 2, garter 2 all the way around. And so I had the beginning of the round in between these two knit stitches. So it was knit 1, garter 2, knit 2, garter 2 all the way around, and get garter 2, knit 1. So at the beginning of the round, I had a knit stitch, and then I would do a decrease in purl, and I maintained a single purl column there. So sometimes there was as many as 3 purl stitches in a row, never more than that, and then you'd have the same on this side, and they were separated by knit 2. So it looked nice. I liked the result of that. I decreased in that second stitch, but then I had that second column, I didn't maintain it as purls. The second column was the one that was always disappearing, so I ended up with, sometimes I'd have as many as 6 knits in a row. So I had a lot more knits in a row, and then those would gradually shrink, and I'd be back to the main pattern. And then the purls would disappear, and again I'd have 6 knit stitches. So again, that's not a problem. I mean, it's not incorrect, it's just different. So as I've been mentioning, my niece is having a baby in February, and her baby shower is next weekend. So a little more than a week from today is the baby shower. And I hadn't realized that she was having a baby shower in early December until a few weeks ago. And so I was thinking about all the things, that I had in progress already and that I would be getting done that I would have until February to knit a bunch of baby things. So the shower came up and I thought, okay, I have to finish the blanket. I'll do this blanket buddy. And then I'm thinking, this is just not enough for my niece. My niece is a knitter and a crocheter. She really appreciates hand knits. And when her older brother, when his first baby was born, I don't even know how old she is, 6, 7 years ago, I had accumulated a stash of baby garments, either from teaching classes, and I would make a sample that was a baby garment, sweaters, hats, blankets, all kinds of things. Sometimes they were just experiments. Oh, I wonder how this would work, or this would be a fun thing to do. And so I just had all these things, and I probably gave them 7 or 8 baby hats, 2 sweaters, and a blanket for their baby shower. And so that was it. I haven't had any baby items accumulating. And then my daughter, who's in the Netherlands, was going to be an au pair for a family that was having a baby. And so I made a couple of things for that baby that my daughter took with her to the Netherlands to give to them, and that baby's wearing those things now. But again, that was somebody else's baby. It wasn't related to me, and I was feeling bad about this. So I thought, what can I do in the next week to sort of up the amount of items that I was going to have at the shower? So one of the things that I'd made for Elodie, the Dutch baby, was this Norwegian sweet baby cap. And it's a baby hat that I try to make for everyone I know that's having a baby. It's a fun knit, doesn't take very long. You can use sock yarn, and it's a nice way to use up leftovers. I think I made the size 3 or 6 month size maybe for Elodie, and I used 22 grams of sock yarn. So really doesn't take very much at all. So what I thought, I should make one of those hats. And then I remembered when I taught at the yarn shop a few years back, one of the women who worked there on Saturdays had a baby nephew, and she made 3 of those hats, but she embellished them in really creative ways. And one of them, because these hats, they kind of come down in like a little, they have like 3 triangular bits that hang down. So you have one that comes down the forehead, covers the forehead, and then the other 2 triangles kind of come down and cover up the ears. And one of the things she had done was pick up and make little shark teeth all the way around, so it looked like the baby was in a shark mouth. And she had done something, it might have been like a fox, because that one comes down. She may have done something with ears or something. She'd done 3 different things, and I couldn't remember what they were. So I thought, well, I'm going to look at the projects of this sweet Norwegian baby cap and see if I can find pictures, like if she had posted pictures on Ravelry. So I was searching for things like shark and dinosaur and all kinds of things, and I couldn't find her things. But I did find somebody had made one of these hats and had put dinosaur scales on the top of the hat, and she had made them in order to match a pair of booties that were called dino booties. And so I looked at the dino booties. I made one. I thought, oh, that would be really cute. I'd make a hat and booties to go with it. So here's the first little booty. So you have the little dinosaur scales going around. So I made this yesterday, and the yarn I used was yarn that I bought when I had was going to make a sweater for Elodie, the Dutch baby. Welcome to the flock. And I went to the yarn shop and I went, oh, I want green, just like most of the people were using. Green seemed like a good color for that sweater. And then the sheep would be white and black. So I bought this green yarn. This is the only color green they had. And I brought it home, and then I realized the black of the sheep, it wasn't going to show up in something this dark. So I thought, well, I'll just keep this yarn. I'll use it for something. It's really nice yarn. And then I just ordered the more sort of pale spring green color directly from the yarn company. This is called Neighborhood Fiber Company. And it's a superwash, I believe it's merino, DK weight yarn. And it's kind of that tonal color, so it's got that little bit of variegation in it that's really nice in hand painted or hand dyed yarns. It's really pretty. So I thought, oh, I'll make the hat and the little booties, and I was making the one booty, and then I thought, you know, I have made baby sweaters in a matter of one weekend before. I'm going to just look up baby sweaters, see if I can make a baby sweater with the same yarn, because I have plenty of it. So I mentioned before that I don't like top-down raglan sweaters. So I was searching for sweaters that could be knit in DK yarn that were for babies, and I tried to exclude raglan as one of the tags. And it excluded anything that had been tagged as a raglan design, but many raglan designs have not been tagged as raglan. So I was still getting a ton of raglan results. So I decided instead what I would do is search for bottom-up construction, and then rather than trying to exclude raglan, I would only include drop-down sleeves, shoulder sleeves, or set-in sleeves. I didn't think there would be too many set-in sleeves for babies, but I didn't know. Now that's going to skip any drop shoulder sweaters or set-in sleeve sweaters that aren't tagged as those, but at least I wouldn't be getting any of the raglans. And I certainly wouldn't be getting top-down raglans if I specified bottom-up. I was still getting a lot of things that I was not interested in, like lace. I know this is a little baby boy, and I didn't want to make a lace sweater, so I thought, okay, what other tags could I look for? Oh, I'll look for fabric characteristics, cables, because I love knitting cables. So then I had a number of options, and the option I chose was by Tin Can Knits, and it is called Jones. And it's a cardigan, it's a cabled cardigan, and it comes in, I think it's 17 different sizes. There's 10 sizes from extra small adult to 4XL adult. And then it has baby sizes from 0 to 3 months all the way up to like 10 years old. So I think there's 7 baby and children sizes and then 10 adult sizes. One of the things that it has is a shawl collar, and that is the kind of collar that I just knit in my ensemble sweater a few weeks ago. I really like shawl collars. I like having a high neck that keeps the back of my neck warm. But there is an issue with my shawl collar sweater, and I wasn't really quite sure how to resolve it. So that is kind of what I want to talk about next. So when I design sweaters for myself, there are usually a couple of things these sweaters have in common. That's not always true, but typically I like a set-in sleeve. And I like to have sloped shoulders. I like the shoulder shaping. And most of the time my collars are just a regular collar, a regular neck, ribbed neck around the back. And I might have a V-neck, I might have a scoop neck, I might have something like that. It might be a cardigan, it could be a pullover. So if it's a pullover, you know, it'll scoop down in the front a little bit. But those are the common things. Set-in sleeves, shaped shoulders, and then a neck that just dips slightly in back. And that's what this sweater has. I have shaped shoulders, and I have about a 1/2 inch dip where the shoulders are at the back of the neck. It dips down just about half an inch. But what I have known that other sweaters that do have shoulder shaping sometimes are straight across. And I've never been able to figure out why that is. I've kind of looked in some design books to see if they suggest one way versus the other. And I know that I've knit sweaters in both ways, but I've never really paid attention or understood why one is done and the other isn't. So in the past past year in particular, but in the past few years, I've really been trying different kinds of sweater constructions. I've been trying different sorts of design elements in my sweaters. And so 2 of the sweaters that I've knit for myself that I've finished this year have collars that kind of flip back. They're extra long and they flip back. One of them was the shawl collar sweater that I just finished. So it's this ensemble. I've worn it a few times in videos. And I've been showing you as I've been knitting it. It has this shawl collar. And this is a raglan construction. It's bottom up raglan. So I've only ever done one raglan before, and it was a bottom up raglan. And that sweater was this one, the one that I over dyed earlier this year. And you can see that it scoops down in the front, and then the back is straight across, and it's straight across at the point where the raglans end. And this fits me just fine. It's a regular crew neck. It's perfectly fine. So when I was knitting this particular raglan sweater with the shawl collar, I wasn't concerned about there not being shoulder shaping the way there would be for a set-in sleeve sweater. And I don't know enough about how all the pieces come together and how that works with the shoulders to know if I should have put in shoulder shaping. So I just trusted the design and I knit it. One of the problems I have with it, I'll show you. I'll try it. I'll put it on. I'll show you. So if I wear this with the shoulders centered, like the raglan seams centered over my shoulders, then what happens is I lose some of the fold over of the collar, and what you see is a lot of just the ribbing up here and then a little bit of fold over. In order for me to get all of the fold over that I want, I have to kind of I have to pull it up like that, and it brings the shoulders forward and brings the front of the sweater down and the back of the sweater up. And so this has been kind of bugging me. If I'm at home and I'm sitting there, I can pull it up and keep my neck warm as I want. But if I'm out in public, I don't want it all skewed. I want it to be right, and then the neck doesn't fold as much. And I was a little frustrated by that. And then I was at my knitting group on Wednesday. I showed up at the library, and one of the women said, "Oh, you're good, you're here. I brought my blue sweater." Now she told me a couple of weeks ago that she had a sweater that she was thinking about ripping out because she said the corners hang down in the front. And I didn't know what she meant. It turns out it was a cardigan, and she meant the front openings of the borders were way lower, like they were hanging way lower than the rest of the sweater. Now, I didn't know the reason why that might be. She's like, "Do you know why that would be?" And I'm like, "Well, I'd need to see it to see what was actually happening. What I was picturing was not at all what was going on." And it was a sweater that was started up at the top. It was a shawl collar, started at the top, and it was all knit seamlessly. And so there was not a good way to really fix it. But she just wanted to know what went wrong and maybe if there was a way to fix it. So she tried it on. She put it on, and it was the shawl collar, and she had the shawl, you know, wrapped around like this. She goes, look how the front is hanging down. And I was looking at it from the side. I said, it isn't that the front is hanging down, it's that the back is hiked up. And she had her raglan shoulders were forward because she wanted the neckline to fit the way you want your shawl collar to fit. So she was having the same issue I was having. And so it was trying to figure out what should the neckline of a shawl collar be in order for it to you have this extra long, you have this extra wide collar, and you want it to fold down and be perfectly in half. And so I think what you want is to avoid, first of all, a dip. First of all, you want shoulder shaping, and then you want to avoid that dip. You want that straight across neck at the top, so that when you knit something that's, you know, 8 or 9 inches long and you fold it over, those two edges will line up. But most of all, what you want for sure is some shoulder shaping that brings that neck up a little bit. I have another idea about how to allow you to have a little bit of a dip and have the fold over collar curve into that. But the main thing is that you need something that raises the back of the neck in order for these flip over collars to work right. Like my raglan sweater with the crew neck was perfectly fine because you want that kind of curve around your neck, but with something where you really have this collar, you want it to fit right. So I have a similar problem with this sweater. This is one that has a flip over collar, but I have the same problem with it in back where it doesn't have much flip back because the ribbing is getting pulled down into the back of my sweater because the shoulders are straight across. Now I knew this when I was knitting it. I saw that there was no shoulder shaping incorporated into the sweater, but there were some differences in construction that I wasn't really sure about, and I really didn't know with a collar this long that would be an issue. So it wasn't until I made 2 of these sweaters and I had the same problem with the flip back that I realized that you really do need the shoulder shaping in order for these kinds of collars to work, and most of the patterns that I'm seeing don't include them for some reason. Now, shoulder shaping is difficult in a sweater like this. This has got a lot of really complex cables. It was graded for, I think, 9 different sizes, and there could be different cables here, and you could be at different places in the repeat. So explaining exactly when to turn in order to maintain the pattern would be a little tricky. So for simplicity's sake, I think some designers just do straight across bind-offs when they have complex patterns like this. So, you know, this has been in the back of my mind since I've knit these sweaters. Now, over Thanksgiving, we were down in New Mexico. We were in Santa Fe, and I was sitting in the kitchen with my daughter, and she was kind of a little more forward from me. I was back, and I looked at the sweater. I could see the back of her shoulder, and I said, "Is that a new sweater?" And she's like, "Yeah, I just got it yesterday with Nana." And I said, "Well, the way those decreases are worked is really interesting." So it was so if you have shoulder shaping, you know, you have something that's kind of a gentle angle like this. This was a much sharper angle, and at first I thought it was a raglan seam line, but it didn't go down to the armhole. It was just a sharper decrease line, and she didn't have it in the front. In fact, the front of the sweater just continued over the back, and it met that sharp decrease line or shaped line. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. I was looking how it was done. It was very unusual, and I wondered why it was like that, or what was the advantage, or was it just a design element? I just didn't know what it was going on. Last night, my husband and I went downtown. We had tickets to see Conan O'Brien and Friends. So it was like Conan O'Brien and 4 other stand-up comedians. And we were seated in the theater, and these 2 men sat down right in front of me. And the guy that was right in front of me, I kept staring at his sweater because he had that same seam line right at the back of his shoulder. It wasn't on top of the shoulder, it was just back a little ways and had that much sharper incline. And I was just looking at it and looking at it and trying to figure out, is this just a new thing or is this something I've just never noticed before? Because I don't own many commercial sweaters. My husband does, but I have very few. So I went into his cupboard, his sweater cupboard, which I did a month or two ago when I was looking at fully fashioned decreases. And I had noticed at the time that his shoulder seams were a little different. It was just coming back to me. So I took a couple of his sweaters out and I looked at how they were constructed and then how the sleeves were placed in them. And then I thought, well, I wonder if this is just a thing with men's sweaters. Obviously, my daughter had a sweater like this. I wonder if any of the very few commercially knit sweaters that I have, if any of them are like that. So I pulled one out and I took it and it was knit like this. And I think this construction is only done with set-in sleeves, but it's really interesting to me. But certainly commercial sweaters have shaped shoulders, so just not shaped the way we tend to do them in hand knitting. And I don't know, I'm dying to find out why they do it this way, if anybody knows. But I'm going to show you what I'm talking about in the overhead. All right, so here, this is the first sweater. You can see there's shoulder shaping, and you can see that the neck dips a little bit back in the back. And so let me flip it over. So here I've got the underarm seam is right here, and you can see then there's the shoulder shaping here. But I don't know if you can see that here is the actual seam line, like this comes over the shoulder a little bit. This appears to be more or less a drop shoulder sleeve. I don't see any decreased lines here. I don't see any kind of shaping along the edge of this sleeve here. So this indicates to me that you could use this with a drop shoulder style of sleeve, and this top part doesn't come over the shoulder very much. This is one of my husband's sweaters. So again, you can see that there is some shoulder shape. You can just see that the shoulders are sloped here. And you can see that this cable pattern is going clearly up to the top here, but it's coming over the back. So this one comes over the back quite a bit more than my other one that was a drop shoulder. And what you see here is you see this kind of corner here where the sleeve or the seam meets the sleeve cap. You get this little kind of pulling. And so I was trying to figure out, well, what's going on here? And what I see is that the part of the front that comes over the end of the shoulder, that straight part that comes over is what is forming the sleeve cap top. So here's probably where the actual top of the shoulder is, right here, and it extends over the back. So you're getting the whole width of the sleeve cap is straight away knitting, because there's no decreasing along this part of the sweater here. All the decreasing is on this side of the edge. And look at here, my husband has a shawl collar sweater. I didn't even know it. He wears this all the time. I just never noticed. So once again, we have shoulder shaping here, and you can see that it comes over the back. So what do we have here? We've got this, extra angular shoulder shaping here, and this goes straight across, and the shawl collar folds over. I'm going to have to study this shawl collar and see. This is one of those kind where they're knit in with it, and then they do increases here. They're doing decreases to form the V, and then they're doing increases here to fill in that V so that you have a straight up. So you have something that's coming straight up. I'm going to spend some time studying this sweater. This is a different construction than the kind I've been doing, which is picking up stitches perpendicular to the edge. So this is interesting. Again, this is a sleeve cap where you have the top of the sleeve cap, so the shaping is finished here, and then you have the top of the sleeve cap, and you get that little pulled angle over where this seam line is. And so this is the part that sits on top of the shoulder, and this sits on the back. So it isn't always that they have it absolutely right in commercial knitwear, but I think when it comes to sweater construction, we could learn a lot from commercial knitwear, and I want to spend some time studying commercial knitwear and see how their sweaters are constructed and what I can learn from those sweaters and how I can apply them to hand knitting. So let me know in the comments below if you have observed unusual construction or construction in your sweaters that is different from what you see in hand knitting patterns. And let me know down in the comments or over in my Ravelry group, Rocks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.